All right, you guys, it is finally time. We are taking a detailed look at one of my favorite shoes of all time. It's not a Jordan, but it was his teammate. And these bad boys, I just don't think get enough love. This, my friends, is a f***ing classic. Hey, what's good, guys? My name's Chris. Welcome back to the official WearTesters.com YouTube channel. Today, we are taking a look at an oldie but goodie. This is the Nike Zoom Pippen 2, Nike Air Zoom Pippen 2. I don't exactly remember how they do it. It's got a little bit of both in there, which we will talk about in just a second. This particular version is the retro. It's not the original. I believe that these released back in 2005. Could have been even 2006. So the manufacturing date says 12/1/05. So this colorway probably released in 06, but I do believe there were some 05 releases. They just weren't original colors. And I don't have the original box for these. I believe the retros came in an orange box, but because it's one of my favorite shoes and because I like OG stuff so much, I'm actually going to use this box as a replacement for right now. I believe the originals came in this guy right here, like this style box. So did some of the Air Jordan 11s. I think it was the black and reds. And then the Air Jordan 12 released in this box too, which is why on the Jordan 12 retros, we get a box that looks just like this, but instead of a swoosh, it's got a Jumpman. However, look at that, that's another classic. Should we review these two? I don't know. But the original Pippin 2s released in 1998. They released in 3 original colorways, one of which was this one right here, which is simply a white, black, and red, or white, red, and black, however you want to say it. The other was a really interesting color, especially at the time. It kind of was like that random, you know, like Jordan drop where they would come in blue. And so it was white with a really cool blue swoosh, or I don't know what you call this thing, like swoop?
Looks like a ribbon.
We'll go with that. So this ribbon right here was blue, so was the branding, and the outsole was black. So same exact color scheme, but replaced the red with blue. They were pretty. And then the third one is actually my favorite, even though I say that not with a grain of salt, but with the caveat of they're all my favorite. But it was the playoff version of the shoe, and those are just dead sexy, man. There's just something about a straight black with white accents and little hits of red throughout.
Flameo, Hotman!
Now, as far as the retro release colorways, this was the only original to actually be retroed, which is really unfortunate because when a line only has 3 original colorways, you would think that they would retro the other 2 and then sprinkle in some new ones throughout, but Nike being Nike didn't do that. This was the only original colorway. They did do one that was similar to the original blues, but the bottom was not black. It was actually the same color blue as the branding and, what'd you call it again?
A ribbon.
A ribbon, that's right. It is still a good look, just not my favorite look. I remember being excited for that release, and when they came out and I was like, that's not how they looked, and so I ended up skipping them. But there was a bunch of other colorways. There was this doo-doo brown one that I don't like. There was like a triple white one, which is super clean. There was a very light gray and white one, which again looks super clean. I think the last release was actually the eggplant one, and I think that's what killed the damn shoe. I remember seeing those eventually at Nordstrom Rack because the shoe was fully synthetic and it was just garbage compared to like the real shoe with all of this really beautiful supple leather on it, and that synthetic build was just
trash.
Now, as far as tech specs are concerned, we're gonna run through this as quickly as possible. On the outsole, we've got it's gorgeous. There's no frills, there's no gimmicks, there's no weird storytelling or anything like that. There's not a map to somebody's house. It is just herringbone. This is great stuff right here. I really wish this shoe would come back. Now at the midfoot here, we have a TPU shank plate, worked just fine. We have a lightweight file-on midsole. In the rear is the air unit, and then in the forefoot, we actually have a really cool articulated Zoom Air unit. It's a 3-chambered unit, and then you can see the impressions of each of these units within the insole itself. So again, the heel is an encapsulated air unit, and then the forefoot you can see is a 3-chambered articulated Zoom. Super comfortable setup, and I really wish that they still use these Zoom Air units. A couple of other things that's on the shoe, lots of leather. There's rolled edges on there, but it's not hiding synthetic leather. It's still real leather, which is great. There is an internal dynamic booty sleeve made out of Lycra, which is all this whole like internal area and stuff. There's a combination lacing system, so we've got external, internal, and then external again. It just looks so good. Like, these are so nice. There's other things that I would love to talk about, like the inspiration of the shoe and the logos or branding, which was different than the original Pippin 1s. However, I think that it would be a great time to introduce you guys to somebody that is really cool. It was my first time meeting him. He's an awesome dude, a legend in his own right, and this, my friends, is Aaron Cooper.
Thanks for having me. It's super cool, super fun. Appreciate it. I was at Nike for 25 years. The first 10 years was with Nike basketball from 1994 to 2004. I was actually the first design intern, was an intern there from Art Center College of Design. After 25 years, left Nike, and the last few years, I've been in and out of kind of deeper into healthcare and getting into more of, the last 6 years I was in Nike innovation and really diving into human performance. So that's where my passion really lives. Basketball was one way to express that passion and just getting more kids to play. I'm still on that purpose path today.
That's awesome. One of my favorite players of all time is actually Scottie Pippen. And, you know, I've always wanted his shoes, never had them as a kid, but am able to afford the retros now. Unfortunately, we haven't seen many of his retros from his main line. We've seen some of the old up-tempos and stuff. But what was it like working with, you know, a Hall of Fame athlete like Scottie Pippen? Was he really in tune, kind of like a Kobe, where he really knew what he wanted as far as performance? Or was he more of like you would create something and he would just trust the process and wear it?
He was amazing and always really, really great with me, treated me so respectfully. We kind of had a little bit of a cheat code because he had Michael, I had Tinker. We were both learning from them. But at the same time, you know, when I first started working with Scottie, I think Tinker was working on the 11. And so in reality, Tinker and Nike was still developing that formula of how to work with an athlete and what does that even mean. I jumped in with Scottie. Eric had been working with Penny for a while. So we were really building it from the ground up. And Scottie jumped in. He loved it. He loved the process. We met all the time, including during the last dance. And a lot of people ask between the Pippin 1 and the Pippin 2, what happened, you know, what was that transition? And it was really the Pippin 1 was designed around Scottie Pippen, the player in person that even I only read about. The Pippin 2 was about the Scottie Pippen that I watched many times playing and I also got to know as a person.
It's funny that you mentioned the 1 because that was going to be my kind of like follow-up, where the retail version of the shoe is clearly different than what he ended up playing in on court. There was the Zoom Pippen 1 versus the Air Max Pippen 1. As a kid, the rumor that I had always heard, just, you know, in the streets or on the courts and all that stuff, was just that Michael was the reason that he moved more towards Zoom Air rather than Max Air. Like, is that true, or is that something that you can even discuss?
I know for sure I can. It's awesome. It's a fun story. I mean, when Zoom Air came out, it was a game changer. I still believe Zoom Air is one of, if not the best, probably the best cushioning for basketball. When Tinker transitioned Michael into that, Michael obviously loved it. And Scottie had been playing in the 1 with the big bubble. He loved the bubble, you know, the much and the more. He loved the Air Max ride. When I presented the Pippin 1 to him, I used to use 11x17 boards and I'd kind of flip through them. And the third board was basically an image of the big Max Air bubble. And Scottie just quickly, and this is the first time I ever met him. And Scottie was like, yeah, I don't want that. I was like, wait a minute, what? Looking around going, nobody was with me. It was just me and somebody from sports marketing. And I had literally just met him. So that first meeting wasn't awesome. And then you can see the transition from him wearing that shoe that was retail to the one that we encapsulated a full-length Zoom Air in the kind of the same tooling, but closed up the windows, obviously. And so there's an encapsulated Zoom Air bag in there. That was really the start of the relationship into the Pippin 2. And I do that with all athletes. I did that with LeBron. It's, you know, now in a great article about first meeting with him, I asked him what's most important about performance. And I do that with all the athletes. Getting the shoe to look like them, to take on their personality is a longer process. But understanding what they need from a performance standpoint, that's just building the product and getting them to wear it. So as soon as Scottie wore that Pippin 1 with the full-length Zoom, he fell in love with it like most athletes do. And we took off from there.
That's amazing. I think that stories like that are fantastic. That's probably one of my favorite things about what you're doing right now on Instagram, which is letting us in, like us old consumers, to the things that maybe we just didn't know about. One of the things that I thought was really interesting that you had just spoke about was actually with the Zoom generation and the Sphere technology, where marketing promoted it like it was something else other than what it was. And so I find that to be very interesting. With the Pippin 2, I've read that it was originally like kind of inspired by or designed after like an old car. I have a little tab up here. It was like a 1951 Mercury. So is that accurate, or maybe is there a different story that we don't know that may have inspired this gorgeous design right here?
I'd love maybe one of your viewers can let us know, is there a shoe before the Pippin 2 that was designed, part of the inspiration came from an automobile? I don't know of one. It's now become a little bit cliche, in my opinion.
It might have been the Jordan 6 was loosely by the Porsche.
We can find out about the Jordan 6. My point being, yes, the Pippin 2 was designed after the 51 Mercury. Funny story, By the way, like, to me, and that's what I put on my Instagram, like to me, it's the stories that matter. It's the stories that make people say, "Oh, I remember when." And it's what goes into the shoe. It's what the designer and the creation team put into the product and the stories that create it, that people then have an emotional connection to, that then resonates with them. And then they buy it and start putting more story into it on their own. One of the things that I do with athletes and still do with athletes is try to understand who they believe they are as a person, both on the court and off the court. And for whatever reason, like maybe it's just an athlete thing or somebody that's going from a certain amount of finance capability to much more. They want to go out and buy a car, right? Like it's a status thing in our culture. So I often ask athletes, if you were a car, what kind of car would you be on the court? And if you were a car, what kind of car would you be off the court? And trying to get an understanding, are they the same? Are they different? If they're different, why? Like get all those questions answered. It helps me in design. And we came up with that 51 Mercury because the performance is underneath the hood. It's actually considered one of the most famous hot rods on the planet now. But the design, that the aesthetic of it is just so silky smooth, and that's his game, right? Like he'll be so silky smooth through the game, and then the explosion of performance when he least expect it was always remarkable to me. And that's what I wanted to create, an aesthetic. And then also when you're wearing it, it surprises you by how much performance is underneath the hood.
That's honestly just amazing. Underneath the hood with this thing is some of my favorite tech. The forefoot is a chambered articulated Zoom Air unit. This is the 0506 release, and then I believe in the back of the heel there's an Air Max unit. Are these tech specs according to this shoe right here the same as the original, or were anything changed up? And also, I don't know if you'd be able to answer this, but those original articulated units, the Zoom units, are, I think, some of the best that you guys have ever made. Why aren't those used anymore?
So all really good questions. Some I'll try to answer, but other ones I might have forgotten myself. I have some drawings I can share with you that do show. So I know for sure articulated Zoom in the original and also the one that you have. What I'm a little bit foggy on, I believe the original had heel Zoom as well. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what it was designed. I can show you the drawing. So the way Nike does it, if it's Air Max, then there's a window. There's Viz Air, the Max Air is the bubble. If there's no window and you can't see it, then they just call it in-cap, like encapsulated air. And that's what so many of the original shoes were. Maybe at retail it did go into that in-cap heel air, but it still lasts longer. That in-cap heel air will always be as resilient the day you buy it to 10 years later. It's the foam that will break down, but the airbag units don't. The articulated Zoom, it's great, but you do lose some cushioning. So the way they articulate it is there's basically creases basically lined up to that outsole. There's creases in the airbag. So you're losing some cushioning, but you gain some flexibility. I actually think one of the best things about Zoom Air is the fact that it's super responsive, but it also has snap. So you almost, if you have a full length Zoom Air bag, you almost don't need any sort of plate. I wouldn't put a plate in it in that type of shoe. The transition and the ride and the snap, the tooling and everything is so amazing.
I'm trying not to geek out here, so I apologize. But
one thing, because I just see, so that plate, TPU plate. So I'll just show you right now. So here's the plate drawing. So this is literally what I sent to the factory.
Oh, that's sick. Was it always supposed to be plastic, like TPU?
Yeah, TPU. And then this is crazy. This is literally what was sent to the factory that they then made their tooling drawing. That's a cross section through the heel. So you can see that was a Zoom Air bag. I think Nike has a very fair margin in terms of the cost structure. So they try to, make margin so they can continue making great product and endorsing athletes and all of that. So they try to make a fair margin, and then the cost of the shoe just plays into that. So yeah, the heel airbag may have been switched from a Zoom Air to an in-cap Air, and we take all those things into consideration about, well, that type of player that's in that shoe plays more up on their forefoot. So maybe the Zoom Air is less needed and we can save some money there, so we don't have to charge an extra $5 for the shoe. Literally all that stuff does get played into. It's not, at least while I was there, and I don't they're not trying to gouge anybody. They're trying to, they want more people buying the shoes and playing the game, right? If they price shoes completely out of somebody's budget, nobody's buying them and nobody's playing basketball, right? So that's entirely possible that the heel area got switched. But what I wanted to say was on this plate is, imagine the heel air back here overlapping part of the heel plate, and then the forefoot air overlapping this kind of tongue, if you will. So I was very much into transition from heel to toe, that beautiful transition, and to try to make that Mercury hot rod smooth ride match up to Scottie's game. So if you want to emulate it, or if that's your game on court, you're killing people with your transition and your endurance in that flow of the game, then it's my job, it was our job as a creation team to create that heel to toe transition in the flow of the shoes. So all the millimeters are considered. How does the airbag in the heel line up to the midfoot plate? And then how does that midfoot plate then transition into the forefoot air? And how does all of that encapsulated in the foam all work together? All of that's considered.
Do you yourself play basketball, or have you played basketball? Were you wear testing the shoe yourself or no?
Always. So I would always wear tests. Not just me, that was part of the thing. And for 10 years, like, we ate together, we played together, we designed together, we traveled together, and we would go over to the gym and shoot hoops together. And some of us were better than others, but that was also fun. That some of the really good players that played in either high school or college, we had a couple guys that actually played in the league for a bit that would come and join us, and they would teach us the game. It's all about empathy, Chris. It's like, for me to be more empathetic, to me to design better shoes for the athletes, and then ultimately be designing better shoes for the players that are trying to excel in the game, I have to be empathetic with them. And so the more I can learn about the game and the style of play from better players than me, the better I can do my job. And so we would go over, play in our shoes. We would sometimes bring over X-Acto knives and start cutting up the shoes and doing revisions literally in the gym, thinking about, well, what if we shaved this off? Don't put anything on the shoes that you don't need, because that's just added weight you're carrying around for quite a distance over a full game.
That's incredible. It's still what they do today, which is really cool to hear, that, it started way back when with you guys. As far as like the branding on the shoe, it's pretty minimal, which is really always, to me, interesting, just because when you are seeing something from the stands or taking a picture, branding is kind of everything. Who came up with the little P designs and the entire logo that you see, like on the back tab and on the front tab? Like, who comes up with that? Is that you, or is that a graphic designer that's part of your team?
So imagine that shoe was designed during a time when anything at retail, all the things at retail that were selling had more stuff on the shoes. The more stuff you could put on a shoe, the better it sold, supposedly. And shoes are usually designed about 18 months out. Here I am presenting the Pippin 2 internally, and at retail, the best-selling shoes have a ton of stuff on them. And I'm trying to convince corporate that here's a shoe that barely has anything on it, and that's going to be the best seller. Like, it didn't go over very well. So it was a bit of a battle, but I always said that, and I will continue, all the best shoes that Nike's ever created were a battle to get out of the berm, so to speak, behind Nike's surrounded by a grass berm. And so a lot of times they talk about it inside the berm or outside the berm. So the design didn't go over too well inside the berm, but Scottie loved it. So that branding, there's a whole story of the design around that, which we can talk about, but around the branding, the logo. So here's my little napkin sketches.
So you did the original one too, the Pip logo, the PIP.
Here's the Pippin 1.
Why didn't that release? That's a great colorway.
So this was part of the inspiration for, was this photograph. Like this is like his classic just explosion in the length of an athlete that he was. And the reason why it was colored up this way wasn't because of the bulls, it was because of volcanic eruption.
Was that the usage of the gel stripes as well, or was that supposed to be a 33, or is it both?
There's a great interview on, I think Nick DePaula did it on ESPN, where Scottie talks about the repeated 33s. And that was something that he came up with, and I just let him run with. Sure, I love it. My job was to prolong Scottie's game so that he would be as fresh at the end of the game as he was at the beginning, and he would outlast everybody on the court. He was I still think he might have been the most fittest athlete in the NBA, even up to today's standards. And so I wanted him to beat people with that endurance. So the infinity, so trying to turn the P into an infinity.
Oh, I see it now. That's really cool. What's the reasoning behind switching the logos then? Because normally you want that type of consistency. I know that they did it way back with the Jordan line, but ever since the Jumpman, it's what we've seen. So what was the purpose behind that?
Yep. So that P stuck from there on out, because again, the Pippin 1 was designed by the media. It was designed by what I read and what I watched. And then as I got to know him as a person, that logo didn't line up.
Is it safe to say that the product then evolved like alongside your guys' relationship as designer and player, or player, athlete, and design team?
That's the way all great endorsed product happens, is that relationship continues to build. What I started with LeBron and the Zoom generation, and then where Ken Link took it to an amazing height. And then Jason Petrie, pushing that bar even further. And Eric Avar and Anthony Hardaway, obviously Tinker and Jordan. So that's the name of the game, so to speak. So the eyelets, are not supposed to be peas. It worked out that way. Like, this is literally what I sent to the factory.
Well, it's just funny because I see that same eyelet used across multiple up-tempo products. And so in my mind, I'm like, was that supposed to be a Pippin shoe, or, you know what I mean? But again, this is young Chris back in the late 90s where there's no internet. We have no way of communicating with you guys. And so it's just our minds kind of like speculating and going on.
The P, I think Scottie actually was another one that Scottie came up with, which again, just let him run. But if you look at the heel, so yeah, those
Where
three,
there's the carve out.
yeah, but then the three notches above. I always want to create a performance advantage for sure, but then I also want to try and create a psychological advantage. So after Scottie beats you to the hoop, I wanted to create a little thing, little message on the heel of the shoe. And so it didn't make the final one. Fear 33. So unfortunately, Nike Legal got a hold of it, and we were concerned that the company No Fear would say, hey, you can't do that. That's our brand. Certainly back in the day, as Nike was continually trying to create impact in their foundation in the industry, they didn't want to cause any problems. So that was fine. But I found that, I was like, would have been a fun detail to put in.
That's awesome. When I'm looking at this shoe here, we have multiple styles of lacing options. You have traditional at the forefoot, you have internal at the midfoot and collar, and then at the top again external, and then even inside you have the lycra sleeve. Can you elaborate on the reasoning behind each of those transitions and what they are supposed to be used for, or what they were meant for performance?
So again, this is going to shock a lot of people, but this is one of the drawings I sent to the factory. That's enough information for the factory to use to work with their pattern engineers, and there's the experts they have stitching the shoes to create a sample. The gilly lacing, that I don't know where that term even came from, but that kind of hidden lacing. I actually, when I was an intern, came up with that gilly lacing, but wasn't able to pull it off because they hadn't figured it out, and I wasn't smart enough to figure it out for us. So I wanted to create kind of a really clean aesthetic in one area, and then that forefoot, just kind of mixing it up and just making sure the containment of that forefoot is right, and then also having the upper, there's like a vein that goes over the top of the foot that you want to be real careful of. Like, you'll notice if you lace down a shoe really tight right over the top of your foot, sometimes your foot can go numb, and that's because there's a vein that goes right down the top of your foot. So that's why those leather strips are there for lace pressure. And so wanted to keep that area super comfortable, and then the containment in the forefoot. Whether or not that was achieved, you be the judge, but that was the intent.
I never ended up playing in the shoe outside of maybe a few shoot arounds. Actually, I think I wore these when I did go to campus one time, and it was in the old gym, and so I shot around with these, and everybody was like, where'd you get those? So that was kind of like a cool moment for me personally, having something that was so old that was like surprising to people. But going back to the car thing, so you like cars and classics, so what do you think about your designs now becoming retros?
The shoes that are quote unquote retroed are the ones that, again, have the story. They're not retroing a shoe, they're retroing the story. People relate to that shoe and say, oh, I remember when they came out, or I couldn't get those when they did come out, now I can. But there's a story to them. There's plenty of shoes that Nike's done that there are no stories, that they'll never retro because nobody remembers them. I think the Pippin 2 is cool because it does have a really great story to it. And then that story lines up with the aesthetic and the performance. And that's just good design. So, call it art science, call it the form and the function, but those two things need to match together, and you shouldn't be able to pull them apart. And that's just good design, form following function. The idea for the Pippin 2 was to basically get rid of all of the extraneous detailing, all the stitching, from a performance standpoint, because the Pippin 1 was stretching too much. And so I told Scottie, we'll just get rid of everything. And that's why that panel is void of all stitching. And there's reinforcement. There's an EVA packaged inside of the upper for containment and comfort. And so that cleanliness is something that somebody should be attracted to and engaged. When they pick it up, they should feel it, be engaging. If they put it on, that should ultimately capture them. And that's what makes them pay for it, walk away and play in it. You're not going to see a lot of, ugly things being retroed. People just don't keep them around, or things that don't perform. I always say there is no performance without style. And if you have style without performance, it's just a fad.
Now, we don't have a ton of time left over. Obviously, we got to keep things within reason, but I just wonder if there's any secrets or nuggets that maybe nobody knows that you can leave us off with as far as the Pippin 2.
In my Instagram profile, I talk about mentorship. I believe we're all here to help each other, be their best, pursue their best selves, and leave this place in a better state than it was when we came in. And so I try to help others as much as I can. And so one of the things I try to do about footwear design is when young designers talk to me, and it's like getting them just to think bigger, think more, be more active, gain more experience. So if you're designing basketball shoes, don't just play basketball. Certainly you better be playing basketball. It doesn't matter how good you are, but play the game to become more empathetic for the players you're serving, and then also do other things. So get out and run. One of the things that I've never shared with anybody, you're the very first. So pick up the shoe again. So the notch in the Achilles, some runners will take their running shoes and literally cut a notch in the heel so that their Achilles can be relieved from that pressure of the foam or whatever it is. And just so that's basically what I was doing is you have that internal booty giving you the comfort and the proprioceptive support. And then I wanted you to be able to plantar flex when your foot goes down like this as you're running. That's plantar. So you're planting your foot into the ground. And that's when your Achilles can get smashed up against the back of a shoe. And so I wanted to make sure that you did not feel the back of that shoe there, because the whole idea for that shoe was around basically just zero distraction. I wanted him to forget that he was wearing a shoe. At the end of the game, the last thing he even thinks about should be the shoes that are on his feet.
I agree. It is like full circle or whatever, like this might be one of his best or favorite shoes just because he ended up playing in these in Portland as well, which was way after the original release. So I think that was around this time frame, actually, the 2005-2006 retro run. So I think that's really telling as far as the design is being so functional that even for a 1998 shoe, you could wear it right now in 2023 and still get buckets.
I think his favorite performing shoe was actually the 3.
The 3 is one of my favorite looking outside of this, but a lot of the things from here seem to have carried over, like a lot of the good performance aspects.
You're right, and I try to just make an improvement. The aesthetic is left for people, for people's opinion, right? We all try to capture as many people's emotions as we can with our designs, but on the performance side of design, the 3 is one of my favorite shoes of all time, and I think that was Scottie's as well. That idea of transition, I engineered an even better transition in rotational transition in the 3, which we can talk about some.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we can talk about the 3 some other time.
Thank you so much for being here. I hope that we can get you back on again to talk about more things, not just the Pippin 2. I believe that people will have a lot of fun with that. We will catch you guys on the next one. So thank you so much for being here. And until next time, guys, y'all have a good one.